You suck at playing controller. Now, to be honest with you, controller is the most important role in the entire game, and because a lot of people don't want to lock controller, you get props for just picking controller. But if you want to be able to carry your team and climb the ranks as a pure controller player, then you need to stop doing these core mistakes. So I'm going to break them all down so you can start hard carrying your inting duelist. Starting off with smoke accuracy. Every time you plan and execute, every time you're using smokes to try to take space or push onto an objective, you need to make sure that the smoke is covering exactly the lines of sight that you want it to, not leaving any tiny gaps that enemies can use to gather information or even shoot your teammates through. Also, you got to make sure that the smokes are covering in a way that doesn't allow enemies to lurk onto sight through the smoke and basically have an easier execute onto sight by using the inside of your smoke as their jumping off point, meaning that your smoke should be towards the edge of the areas that you're trying to clear, not filling into the point that you're on. Now, before we continue, you've had terrible teammates that have locked duelist and gone freaking 0 and 15, and it's frustrating, but you can carry these trash players and get the win no matter how bad your teammates are with SkillCapped. We give you breakdowns about how top tier pros carry their games and things that you can use to dominate in your lobbies, and we offer a money back guarantee, so if you don't climb, you just don't pay. So what are you waiting for? Check it out right now down below. Now, the next big problem that a lot of controller players have is very telegraphed plays. And what this basically means is that as a controller, it's your job to decide when the execute is going to full commit. Oftentimes when you're investing all this utility, all these smokes, it's going to cost you a lot to decide to back up and rotate off. And if you're planning to actually commit to something and you already used all this utility, but then afterwards you decide to rotate off, you could cost your team the entire rotation of the entire round because you're making the play too telegraphed. And it's especially important that you're not giving away all of the information about where you're at to the entire enemy team. In addition to that, you got to make sure that if you are for sure going on, that's exactly when the smokes need to come up. You don't want to throw your smokes out too early. You want to make sure that the timing is perfectly synced with your duelist and other players executing onto sight, because if it comes up too early, there'll be a premature rotation or premature utility that can mess it up. Comes up too late and your teammates are going to get freaking sniped from a very obvious angle. So it's really important that your timing is perfectly linked up with your team. And the best way to make sure that you're going to do this is to have some form of communication, know what your teammates are doing, and make sure that you also have active comms saying something like smokes are going to go up in 3, 2, 1. So it's a lot easier for your team to sync up with you and everyone's on the same page. No one makes a mishap just with the timing alone. And it's one of the things that you can do very easily to set yourself apart from many other controllers that mess this up, and you lose rounds, a lot of rounds, because of it. Now, next up, I would say that the most important thing that every controller main needs to do is not die. And you might be saying, Mills, of course I'm not supposed to die, man. What kind of advice is that? But with controller mains in particular, your life is more valuable, especially at the start of the round, than any other life. Because if you die, executes become incredibly difficult. Like imagine on Breeze, before any smokes are up, the Viper gets picked off first. And now, all of a sudden, your team can't cross any open space. And their entire strategy needs to change because there's no smokes that can be brought up to help them entry onto site. And this is why you should not be the first one to run out and challenge. This is why you should not be the first one to lead the pack of your team. And if there's ever a time where baiting is okay, if there's ever a time where you don't have to be the one taking charge, it's as a controller main. Now, I'm not saying that you don't trade, and I'm not saying that you don't play to the fundamentals where your team goes in, you make sure to try to get kills and trade them out, and you're still not playing in fear. It's important not to play in fear as a controller, but you're not taking unnecessary risk. And that's the thing. If your duelist dies and you trade them out, that's perfectly fine. But if you die and your duelist trades out, then you're 1 for 1, but you no longer have a controller. And unless your team already have site control after the fact, then they're going to be stuck without smokes. And even in post plant, having smokes is super freaking powerful. So make sure that you value your life as such, prioritize staying alive at all costs, and still fulfill your duties, still do the fundamentals, but don't take on that unnecessary risk and get yourself killed, costing your team the round. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about is holding down a site, because controllers have amazing stall utility. They're really good at holding down a site, and there will be times where they're even solo holding a site, and the enemy team will push onto the site, site, and a controller doesn't know whether or not they should smoke off and hold, stay on site to try to fight, play around their smokes and try to fight, or if they should just dip out. What should you do? Well, this is really going to depend on how the enemy team is playing. In what way are they taking sites? Are they fast, committing to a site with tons of utility, making it very hard to fight back? Like, are you getting KO knives, sky flash, freaking dashed on? The more resources an enemy is using and just dumping onto a site right away, the more likely you're not going to want to play on site. The more likely you want to play off site because they're wasting all that utility. It's going to be easier for you and your team to retake with you alive, with your controller utility to take these angles and take the site back. And it's going to be really hard for you to get any kills, because the reality of it is, if you commit to the site hold, you really want to be able to get 2. And if you think you can with the way the enemy team is playing, the way that you have setups with your utility, that is something that you could do. You could hold that site and try to get 2 and potentially die. But if you're trading 1 for 1, most of the time it would be better for you to actually just leave the site and use your utility to retake the site, because you get added utility for helping retake the site, you know, close off certain sight lines and allow your team to execute that much better. So it's really going to depend. I would say you probably want to err on the side of caution, and if the enemies are consistently committing to a site, you would rather just play slightly off site, giving you the option to leave. And options are always going to be good no matter what you're doing. So if you have the option to dip out, that's going to be better for you. But if they're not committing enough and they're coming to your site every once in a while and you know you can shut it down, then all of a sudden you make it so it's very hard for the enemy team to push anywhere, because they can't push your sites, and then you can always play retake with your utilities. So next up, we do got to talk about ultimate use. And with ultimates, it's important to understand that ults can also be a liability. Like, they're very strong, but what you want to look for is consistent value, making sure that there's nothing that is going to mess up your ult or cause problems for your team. A great example of this is like the Viper ult can be something that hurts your teammates' line of sight in a similar way that you're hurting the enemies. They no longer have line of sight of the spike, or they no longer get to see around where the enemies are, so they could use your smoke to kind of lurk up on them. So it is important that when you decide to invest in ult, you understand the ramifications for it. Where does my ult affect? How strong is this ult at stopping the enemy from making a play or enabling our play? And the most important thing is just look for that consistent value, something that can guarantee force the enemy to act a certain way. If you're going to lock down, forcing them to act a certain way, and make sure that you're looking at what utility they have, what ultimates do they have, can they shut it down really easily with the Hunter's Fury, do they have that ultimate available? These are things that is important, because you don't really want to trade your ultimate for just another person's ultimate. You want to trade your ultimate for a round conversion. So this also might mean, hey, the enemy team has exhausted a lot of utility, there's very little time left, they are around my site, I know that they're probably going to commit here, let me pop a Viper ult, and while I might not get guaranteed value, I'm going to force them to rotate at the very least. And if they come into me, I'll probably be able to get that too, like I want. If they don't come into me, then they are going to be in a huge hurry, and my team can stack the other site. So there's a lot of options with these ultimates, but make sure that you're not using it on a whim, just using it when you have it. Try not to just press it whenever you have it. I would say 1 good ult is worth 5 bad ults, so just keep that in mind. Now, of course, there's going to be some core differences between every single controller. Some controllers are going to be playing fundamentally different depending on if they're a dual smoker setup, where the secondary smoker can be a bit more liberal with how they're playing. They don't have to be playing as safe. They don't have to be as afraid, because their utility is going to help create space, but it isn't the end all be all if they die. So they don't have to play as safe, because they aren't the fundamental necessity smoke that is going to allow your team to operate and move around the map or take points. You're just a helper, right? So characters like Harbor at times, maybe even Omen, if you do have another controller like Viper, there are going to be times where you can incorporate more of a lurker role. Or like Omen, after you utilize your utility to help your team get on site, you can teleport in, you can be aggressive. There's different ways that you can be a smoker and still get a lot of impact after you do your fundamental job. So don't think just because you have some jobs you have to fulfill, some things that you need to do perfect for your team to help them get on site, that doesn't mean that your job's over, and it doesn't mean your carry potential is capped. There's a lot more plays that you can do from there, so don't forget it. All right though, guys, before we wrap this up, let me tell you a little bit more about SkillCapped. So we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that. Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really works. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium Valorant guides on the internet. We add new courses every month with over 1,000 guides curated into 50 courses no one can compare. We also have a direct line of communication with subscribers in our Discord so that you can get connected immediately to some of the best players in the game who will respond to any and all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So that's going to be all for this one today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.